Firstly, thank you all so much for joining us in person and online for those who watch it afterwards. My name is Jessie Sidhu. I am a mental health activist and also a music lover and lover of the arts and culture. And today I'm joined with Beant.
How you doing, right?
So before, I feel like I'll do a poor job of doing your intro. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm a musician, I guess. A musician, content creator, trainee solicitor.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of important because not everyone can be a creative full time, and you have to make money.
Yeah.
And I think kind of show that we're multifaceted, as individuals, like we all are. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. And I think, honestly, I think that's a great place to start for yourself. Like you said, you've always had this creative side to you, but also the work side and making life, I guess, work for you. Do you find that creativity, is it more of an outlet or is it the forefront of what you're doing?
It sounds really pretentious, but I'd reject the kind of dichotomy. I think it's just a part.
Yeah.
It's like a thing you do constantly. Like, if, for example, someone said, like, is gym at the forefront, or what was the second part? Sorry,
or
the forefront, or
I get, oh my goodness, now I'm forgetting the forefront, or if it's just I guess a part of what you do or an outlet on the side.
I wouldn't kind of regulate it to the side. It's almost like a necessity.
Yeah.
But if I don't release something, like it's always gonna be there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a part of your being almost. Music. Every day I listen to music. Every day I create music. Even if it's not in the studio, if it's not, I'm doing something musical. Like, like if I'm tapping, if I'm thinking of stuff in my head, and doing riyaz, whatever it is, it's just part of the fabric of my personal life.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the fabric of a lot of people's lives. Like. Apa kirtans on there, we just listen to music from the TV. I don't think we really think about that, but without music, the TV shows, films we watch, they're gonna be really odd. So I think, yes, it's something deeper and more ever present. The music. And the creation.
And I think you touched on something really important there. And it's funny that you said the same thing. It was another conversation that we were having kind of in the green room before we started about how Punjabi culture in general, like you're right. I think for a lot of Punjabis, creativity and just being goes hand in hand. And oftentimes I feel like as we get older, we start to reject that. We start to see creativity as something that we only can do for fun, or now we live in a world where being a creative is an actual job, and a lot of people go down that route. And you yourself, like you said, you're doing both the solicitor end of things and the creative end of things for yourself. Do you, and of course as a cultural commentator as well, how do you see Punjabi culture being integrated with creativity in the arts?
Yeah, Punjabi culture is creativity.
Yeah.
And we've forgotten that. And Sikh culture is creativity. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji travels the world with Bhai Mardana. Bhai Mardana's playing a rabab. Guru Nanak's not like, and not to be disrespectful to any Dharam, but he's not on the corner just speaking out loud with a mic and a boombox. He's saying, Tusi aajo baitho, ral milke, let's do some kirtan. So when that mode of kind of the message is given through music, through rag, the whole psyche of a Sikh becomes about being creative.
Yeah.
In Gurbani, I think it says, Sahib mera neet nama. My Sahib is that Rab is just always changing, always new, every moment. So if we understand that to be the cosmic reality, we're just naturally creative. So that's from the Sikhi side. From a Punjabi side, and part of my goal for the content is the sabhyachar, the Punjabiyat that we are presented with from, I think, multiple angles, is a bastardization of Punjabi culture. It's like daru pilo, and we're like this, and it's quite, I would say, excludes women a lot of the time, unfortunately. And when we look at Punjabi culture, this is not what it really is. And we need to put forward and say, actually, Punjabi culture is these things, you know, lady sangeet at the wedding, all those things, they come from somewhere. Folk music, lok geet, daddi, that's from our culture. And when we just sideline it, I think it's a real shame. And we do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we allow other people to say, oh, you're Punjabi, you look like drinking. Tika, like a lot of people do in our culture. That's like this much. Imagine someone said British culture and they said, you look like going to the pub, don't you? And they're like, huh? We got Shakespeare, we got this, we got that, we got administration. We shouldn't relegate our culture. We should celebrate it, and it is a creative. It's part of everything, just like every other culture as well. They create architecture and things like that, but we do as well. We should really champion that, I think, as Punjabis, as Sikh people, and yeah.
Yeah, and so again, we're talking about healing through the arts today, and you've had your own healing journey through the arts, and I know we talked about this a little bit, and I think it would be great for the audience to hear as well. But how did you find your connection? How did you lead into music? Because of course, like you said, we grow up with, whether it's music around us, watching movies, TVs, especially in Punjabi culture and Sikh culture, we have, like, I remember waking up and doesn't matter what day it is, kirtan is on in the morning. Like, I wake up to music in that sense. And we don't necessarily see kirtan as music, but it is just so ingrained in us. And we were talking about it before, like, everything is done in a certain rag and like all of these things. For yourself, how did your healing journey and music connect? Did that happen early on, or is that something you found later in life?
I think because I was such a big fan of hip hop, that idea of journaling almost, with a pen and pad and writing your thoughts down, there's a lot of things in hip hop that are a symptom of negative aspects of life. I wouldn't personally say it's the cause, but a lot of what hip hop allows for artists to do is have a session with their own selves about what they've been through. And probably, you know, baddi gal ya choti, when it comes to mental health, I think it's not really a comparison game, because that everyone's going through their own things. And because of hip hop, I think from the jump, it was like, yeah, music's a way you can settle your ideas. I was a huge Kendrick fan. I still am a huge Kendrick fan. That Good Kid, Mad City album is a story of coming to terms with a loss. You know, where he loses his mate to gang violence, and how then he finds like Jesus and God in that sense. And that was just a huge album for me as a kid. And then I used to rap all the time in the back of classrooms and stuff. I was really irritating as a student. It's really bad because my dad's a teacher.
That's probably why you were irritating as a rebellion.
I don't know. That's like that's like some Freud shit right there. I don't know. But when I was like 15, 16, one of my friends who I used to make music with, he got run over and he died. And I was like, just fucked. I was like, I didn't really know how to tell mum and dad. It felt really weird. And I wrote a song with my friends, and we all, like, there's like 14 of us. I wrote like a couple of verses, and it was about like coming to terms with it. I don't think you really do come to terms with it, but you make a song that says you're coming to terms with it, and it kind of helps. And I used to write about other stuff, angsty teenager stuff or whatever, in your raps and whatever. And then I think that does help you like I said, come to terms with things and write it down, because it is really a form of journaling. And I think throughout my life, where there's been difficulties, it's like, and it sounds a bit cringe, but they just come to you like these lyrics, like you're just there in the bathroom or whatever, and you just get these bars coming. And even though now I don't listen to hip hop as much, because I've kind of, I started listening to other music. It's just still in that, it's just bars just come to you. So whenever something happens, I just start like writing. And we're lucky we got a phone, innit? So you can always get stuff down. And I think because of that, you at least can get ideas down, regulate to an extent what you're feeling, and kind of explore it a bit differently, and kind of serve yourself in a way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it makes perfect sense. And I think for myself, of context-wise, I come from the mental health world. I've had a decade in working in mental health and advocating for especially Punjabi mental health and South Asian mental health around the world. And one of the things that I actually used to teach mental health to young Punjabis and young kids was hip hop, like you said, and talking to them about how songs from like Tupac to Biggie to especially that 90s, early 2000s hip hop, it was very ingrained in what they were going through. And one of the, I guess, gripes I have with Punjabi culture and Punjabi music right now, I know you touched on the alcohol part of it and the alcoholism that runs in our communities and the glorification of that, but also the glorification of violence. And we have this category now called Punjabi hip hop, which is phenomenal. And we're bringing in the sounds, but I feel like at the same time, artists that are in the Punjabi hip hop space haven't necessarily brought in the heart of hip hop. Like you said, where Kendrick is talking, like even though Good Kid, Mad City, banger album just to put on in the car and listen to, but if you really listen to it, it has such meaning. Even his most latest album talks about how he has a person in his life who is a trans woman and how that experience was of growing up and trying to understand that with your family. Tupac, his mother, was a social justice warrior. And those were, to me, that's the essence of hip hop. But I feel like Punjabi hip hop doesn't really bring that. Is that something that you see as well? Or maybe I'm just living in my silo?
It's a really challenging question. I think ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ, well, I can't speak for you, but ਮੇਰੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤਾਂ ਟੁੱਟੀ ਹੀ ਹੈ. So when it comes to understanding the lyrics, there's a barrier there. And we know for a fact that a lot of these artists are, when we talk about Karan Sidhu, they're impeccable lyricists. They're talking on multiple kind of levels. And we don't always understand that, I think. So I think the new wave of hip-hop does have a lot of violence. And you can argue it glorifies it to an extent, but that is, firstly, to an extent, their kind of reality. You know, Sidhu did get killed. He got murdered. And you know, when you go to the Beant, it's a little bit like the Wild West. And even if we're not talking about physical violence, death is more of a... If you're going to eat meat in Beant, yeah, you're going to eat chicken, they're going to kill it in front of you. ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਟੈਸਕੋਸ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਈਏ, ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਆ chicken, whatever, beef, whatever it is, right? It's right there in front of you in a plastic thing. ਉੱਥੇ you kill the thing, you see it in front of you. You see a suicide, it's there. The farmers are hanging. A kid might come across it, you don't know. We, I think, don't always understand that, or at least I think as younger people, you know, Punjab is, or that's, you know, sadi maa tarti hai, but it's not really in a way, because I was born here. My life here is very different.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what I mean about the mental health. You can't really compare, because someone in the Bend might be going through depression, and they might have had such a different life, but you or me or whoever, and we might have our corporate lives. We might be on 80 grand a year, living really nicely, but still going through stuff. And it's like, well, obviously on a factual basis, you're just looking like, well, his dad died of suicide and he's in the Bend and he's got no options and no opportunities. Or you've got big fat salary, you're living here, what's your problem?
Yeah.
So kind of didn't answer your question, but to go back to the violence in Punjabi hip hop, I think it's something that is more aligned with what they're used to, and we got to look at Hathiar and Shastar being something that we do respect in our culture, and it's part of our culture. So there's that. And then I do think they do talk about important things.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they do. I think Sidhu did. I think Garden does. Garden's got a lot of songs, especially previously, where I think he was 21, he dropped a song, can't remember what it's called, but he's just dropping lyric after lyric. And they're really deep kind of understandings of his life and what he thinks. And I think we do a disservice when we say they're not bringing the heart. I think they are bringing the heart. And there's a lot of artists that do that. That's kind of how I see it personally.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great view on it as well. And like you said, I think artists go through their own creative births and rebirths. There are times when that is very, very important. I think as an artist, and as you touched on, when you're making music and the lyrics are just coming to you, especially as someone who is a writer, you can't help what is on your mind. It really is a reflection of what you're going through in the times. And I think that's something that's really interesting, where I think the music space right now is in a interesting spot. Maybe this is from like a North American Canadian perspective, but there's kind of two ways that I see it. There's the artist route of where you're using music as your creative outlet. You're really using it for healing. Maybe it's collective healing as well. And there's also the business side to it. It is a business. It is a way to make money. It is, for a lot of people, like you said, that's their full-time job. And you can't negate the fact that in that full-time job, sometimes there's going to be problems and sometimes it's going great, and that you don't necessarily have those hardships to talk about. But as you touched on, especially with Sidhu, I think he was one of the people who did a really good job of bringing forward collective voices, and especially before his passing. And do you see artists playing a role in collective healing, of helping heal the community? What are your thoughts on that?
When an artist does a song and it's really aggressive and it's really within what we could say their lower kind of self, because I believe we kind of got two states of consciousness, one that's connecting us to Rab and one that is kind of full ego. That full ego serves us as well, because we could say in one way it's an outlet for all that aggression and all that, what, for want of a better word, bullshit. And that's a difficult line to kind of draw, and you don't know someone's intentions, so you don't know why they're doing it. So when we do see that violence, I think that could explain it too. And it's a part of the human experience to feel a lot of rage and feel just a feeling of excess of pride or whatever it is. So that's part of it. But in terms of collective healing, I think when you go to a concert or something and someone's singing something and you're all in one like company and you're singing it, that's really powerful. And I do think let's say Sartaj or something, or Nusrat, these kind of artists, when they're doing their music, and there's something going on there, isn't there? So I do think there's space for that. And I do think there's space to take on other people's dog.
Yeah.
Which is somewhat, if you're not in the right mind frame, a song can really mess with your state, right? And that's something that listeners, as an audience, we should think about potentially, especially with kids and stuff. I didn't think this as a teenager. I used to think, it's just music, but I think there's a lot of power to it.
Yeah.
So having said that, and I was speaking to Tony earlier, if there's positive, negative. So when we let's say like we are putting a song where someone's put their doc on the song, that doesn't make the artist bad, but just be mindful. Maybe like if you got a ute in the car, you don't want to put that onto the ute. It's a color of the world. Sadness is a really lovely color, and it's an experience. We're on earth to experience things, but I think being conscious about how we share that and in the context, because kids don't always understand context.
Yeah.
Whereas we do as fully grown, we know that that's someone's really duck, and I don't agree with all of it, or I don't know what it's like to be in his shoes, but he's shared that with me. It's powerful. And Nyana's just going to be like, could be overwhelmed by it. You know?
No, I think that's such a great point as well. And it is sometimes you just don't know how a song's going to hit until you listen to it as well. I know there's been plenty of times where I've heard the song maybe 10, 13, 14 times before. And I'm like, yeah, great song. But then there's one where I'm depending on the headspace I'm in or what I'm going through that day, suddenly I'm like, whoa, this song is life changing. And I've had that moment a few times. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you heard a song and you're like, you needed to like take a minute and be like, wow, I think I just went through an experience?
Yeah, none are coming to mind, but I think regularly I'll just be like, so I'll hear something and it'll just be like in my head. It might be the actual content of the lyrics. It might be the way the melody goes. It might. Yeah, I think the biggest time was recently was True School did a listening. I don't know if anyone was there. True School did a listening session for his album Word Is Born, which came out 20 years ago last December, and he showed a piece at the end of Dulla. So he's got a song called Dulla, and it's about Dulla Patti. And at the end of the song, he had a long piece of music that didn't make it to the actual album because back in the day, you know, purane time de vich, you'd have to like have like a certain amount of time on the CD. You can't like go too much, otherwise it messes everything up. So they had to cut it out.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's shown it to everyone there, and I won't say his story about behind it because it was a kind of private kind of event, but he was going through some shit at that time, and he's just telling us about it. And he goes, when I was composing this piece, this is all the feelings I was feeling, and I was there, and I'm lucky I've got a relationship with him, and it was similar to something I've been through, and I was just, I could see him as someone I look up to and just respect so much, going through that as a person a little bit older than me or maybe similar age at that time, and just composing this music, and it hit different. And I think that personal connection you have with an artist, on top of those kind of shared experiences, is really what can impact you. But any music can kind of impact you, I think. Literally, to me, literally anything, when I'm just there, I'm like in a certain mood or vibration. It's like you can be taken to another place, and that can be happy as well. Sometimes some songs are just wicked. They just, you know, that Lember and Miss Pooja song. That's like that's just so happy. It's so like that kind of soul-based Bhangra music is so infectious that you can't help but smile. So I think on the other way, I think it's important to mention that as well, like the cushy, and it can make your day really happy and content. Like you feel like, oh, this is wicked.
And that, I feel like that is the essence of Bhangra. Bhangra was made for celebrations, or when our crops are being harvested, we're like, okay, let's go celebrate this huge momentous moment. Because like you said, mental health, you can't really respect and appreciate the good if you don't go through the bad times. And so of course there's this healing outlet for the negative feelings and the anger and the sadness that's in us, but also in those positive moments. And I know we've talked a lot about music, but as you mentioned, concerts as well, like dance is also such a huge part of Punjabi culture. And that's something that I think we were talking about it a little before, like Bhangra competitions used to be huge, and then they kind of lost their way. And I honestly, in reflection from the mental health world, I saw that as we were going into COVID. And of course there was factors that we couldn't be in person, but it was really hard for a lot of people to come back to dancing, being creative. I think about this all the time, where I grew up in, like, I'm born in 94. I grew up in like the 90s, early 2000s. And I remember our family parties, like people would just come over, everyone goes in the basement, lights are off, maybe some like strobe lights if you got lucky, and then it's just music and everyone's having a jam. And that used to be a part of almost our weekly life. Like I remember at least 2 or 3 times a month, those were things that were happening. And I'm sure it was similar here. We talk about the daytimers parties, like all of that stuff. And I feel like that's really missing now. And do you feel like that has anything to do with the fact that people are starting to feel more isolated and we're not having those moments? Is that something that you see here as well?
Yeah, it might be something to do with the fact that those kind of gatherings, I think, firstly, you need a place to gather. And I can only speak for myself. I live in a little flat in London. And there's not really much space. And I think a lot of people still live with their parents because of costs and things like that. So I don't know you know, but I love my parents, but you know, it's their house, isn't it? So when I go home, I'm in their house. So I'm not really going to invite all my boys over and kind of do a nudging session. But I think that's part of it. I think social media probably.
Mm-hmm.
We're all hyper connected, and it's very cliche, but we're really hyper connected. Like I don't know what like Bantu from like Leicester had for lunch yesterday, but I haven't really chatted to him for a minute. He doesn't exist, so I could never chat to him. But we're not connected on a real level.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether those events and those coming together as gatherings held more power because you actually didn't get to see them for 14 days and then you get to see them. Whereas we see each other every day.
Yeah.
I post every day. People, it's a bit mad. Like some people come up to me, talk to me about my life, and I think the content's worth it. But there's a weird thing where it's like, I'm not a celebrity or anything, but it's like people really know about like me, and I try not to be that personal online. So I think that's probably a part of it. We're losing the actual physical space of connecting with each other in favor of a digital one, which is powerful, but it's not the same, innit? Like, it's not the same going on live on Instagram or whatever. You miss out a lot, and I think it's a shame.
Yeah, and I think the social media world has really changed how we view mental health, how we view connection, and all of those things. And for yourself, as someone who is very active on social media, like you said, there's things that you put out there in the world, and some that's for public knowledge now. That's for other people to either make their judgment on or add their comments. And of course, that is bound to take an effect on your mental health. Has that been something that you've struggled with in the past, or have you done it? Or is there a ritual that you have to be like, no, this is how I keep myself centered and make sure that you're yourself at your core, not changing for your audience? Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with nowadays, whether you're a content creator or not.
Yeah, I think the main thing with the content is the ego. It's like, it's a real, like, it's such a, you post, you get likes, you get comments, the numbers go up. Mani Sandhu starts following you, you're like, this is wicked, I feel good. Auntie, I come up to you and like the Gurdwara, like, oh, you're really like doing well, whatever. Your mum says, oh, so-and-so said this about your video, and it's all like good. The negative, if I'm honest, like, I think because of my self-esteem, my egos don't really bother me. And I'm lucky the audience are really kind, but the positive is really like, I think it's a challenge because you're reinforcing the duality of like, so for context, my whole understanding of Sikhi is Sab Gobind hai, Gobind bin nahi koi. There's nothing but Gobind, right? Ek Oankar, there's only one Karta Purkh, and you're just a manifestation of that, and so are you. We all are. The parda of home is getting in the way, that ego, right? And on the real highest level of understanding and consciousness, that parda only gets pierced with like Guru Sahib's like kirpa, really. But we live in ego, so Maharaj is telling you, do these things, yeah, you'll do it. But really, it's all hukum. That's how I understand it. And this content thing is just another fat identity. Like being a lawyer is a fat identity. Being an artist is another dangerous one, but no one cares about my music, so it's not as deep. But people do care about the content, and it's like that pyar I get, I love it and I really appreciate it, but it's like it messes with you because it's like it just reinforces that I'm Beant, I'm the TikToker, I'm the Instagram banda, and it's like I spoke to a Gursik from Leamington. He's like wicked, he's like really good banda, and he's basically saying that really you're just making a rod for your own back. Because what you're doing is good, but it's like for your own self, it's just building this identity up. So the hate comments genuinely doesn't really bother me. Most of the things they say is like, I got a gap in my tooth. I've been had the gap since I was like 12. So I'm like, it's a gap in my tooth, innit?
Like, I'm used to this now.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. And then what else? So, some guy keeps calling me the N-word like, over and over again. I keep blocking as the guy keeps doing. And I'm like, that's not really going to bother me because like, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't bother me. Like, what do you mean? So I think the paradoxically, the PR is probably the biggest difficulty, not in terms of mental health, but then it is mental health because then you build yourself this thing, and it's now an idea, and if that idea doesn't keep growing or go the way the idea should go, and that's out of your control because you can only make the content, you can't get people to like it and share it and whatever, then you're going to be a das, and then you're going to be in this weird situation. And that's I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, because I think even as you're talking about this, I could imagine that all that PR is also a lot of pressure too, of trying to live up to not only like not necessarily making content for the audience, but having that responsibility. I think that sense of responsibility is something that comes in different ways, and we can like talk about it as, oh yes, this was like you've got the love, but that I think in families as well, like for example, I'm the oldest and I got a lot of love from my family for being the oldest, the first girl. All my cousins were guys up until that point, but it became so much pressure for me because then it was like, oh, but like, koi na eh hegi, eh kar lugi. Like, and it was always something that for, I think in the beginning, when I first started feeling it, it was just about the love for me. I was so excited to feel that love, but then as it goes on, it starts to build into that pressure. And is that something that you've seen for yourself as well?
I don't think in the same way as you might have. I don't think I feel pressure. Partly because every bit of content I do, I put it through 2 filters. My mum's going to see it and my employer's going to see it. So firstly, if you ever see some content where I'm sitting on the fence, yeah, I'm sitting on the fence because I don't want to mess up my salary, man. Like if I start going crazy, it's not good. You know what I'm saying? So that's one reason why you might be like, Beant's like, he's just reporting this situation in Punjab like it's news. It's like, yeah, because we kind of have to. The second bit about my mum's going to see it. Like if my mum's happy with my content, then like genuinely like not really bothered. And then because I think the third thing, because I'm an artist, you know, I've got like earring and whatever, like people I don't think put that pressure on me really. Because they're like, oh yeah, but that's Beant. He's been rapping before. He's been doing the Punjabi set content. So it's like, yeah, he's a bit of a like bohemian thing, whatever they want to call me, like weird thing, and it. Like, and I'm happy with that because then you're not really. They try and put you in a box, but they understand that the box was never really there, so it's all right. So that doesn't bother me as much as it might. In terms of being the old, I'm the youngest as well, so I'm like, yeah, it's the thing. I get a bit of freedom. I don't know. It must be. We might have to put boundaries and stuff. I don't know how you do it.
No, birth order actually makes a difference. I'm not going to go too hard into the psych knowledge, but I think it is. It's like all of the experiences that you've had, there's so many different ways to go about it. And I think, honestly, as we're talking, I think you've got a really good way to go about yourself. You've got good people around you, a support system. And I don't think we talk about that enough as well. Like not only is mental health an individual thing, yes, we need to regulate our own emotions. We need to be able to seek our own help, etc. But we also do need those support systems in place. And for yourself, as you said, like I'm kind of bringing it back to when we first started after your friend passed away. And you had that group of you that were making music together. And I wonder if that experience would have been different if it was just you alone in your room versus having that group of supportive people that were like, let's do this together. Let's work on this. Let's heal through this together. And I guess leading into kind of ending off the session, like we talked about, art and healing go hand in hand. You can't really separate the two. So for younger artists out there, for artists who are whether they want to do this full-time, part-time, or just in their bedroom for themselves, what are some of those things, those pieces of advice you would have to make sure that they can keep themselves mentally healthy through that process?
What, creating art?
Creating art, mentally healthy, finding that support system. Like, what are there any pieces of advice that you would give? So people who are coming into this space, whether it's content creation, making music, dancing, putting themselves out there, how they can continue to support their own mental health through that journey.
In terms of support system, I can't, because it's just qudrati, like since a young kid. I've got friends I've known since I was 4, and I still talk, like I'm still very close with them. And then I went to uni and I've got such, not just peers, but I've got like ustads and like elders and like people in West Midlands, people in London. Like one of my close friends he's 38. He's a vice president at like a financial services firm. That's mad. 25 years old, and he he's been through all that corporate shit that I'm going through, and he knows. And it's like, he's not a conventional Ustad, innit? Because how can you have a financial services Ustad? But I'm just so blessed. The Sangat I've got it is like second to none, and to have the parents I have, with and in fairness, you know, they're Desi parents, so they still do have some of the dysregulation that we all kind of have to deal with. But they are really supportive. That they never put. I moved out at 18, went to uni, I stayed out, and it's not a problem. It's literally not a problem. I don't feel guilty. They don't make me feel guilty. Like, I'm really aware about how lucky I am with that. So I can't say to anyone, okay, I did this and this is how I found my support network, because I think they really just took me on board, a lot of people, with all my stupid behaviors and stuff. Like, they just, you know, and I found a group of Sengs as well, like, who are, because I grew up like in different places, and they've gone to like different Sikh kind of places. I grew up in Leamington, but a lot of the time I felt a bit, I wouldn't say excluded, but you don't feel you could bring your full self to the Gurdwara and with like sayings and stuff, because you'd be like, oh shit, my man's going to be like, oh, but you went to this party last night, or you know, he's doing this at school, whatever. But I've got like Amritari Singhs in my life now who are like, just, they don't judge you, nothing. And that's so powerful. A lot of women in my life as well who are just like incredible. So I can't speak to that, but I could say with your mental health, it's like a lot of the power in a way, and I don't know if this is fair to say, you can do a lot of things yourself that can make your life easier. And we don't always do them, but like a routine, like Maharaj is telling you, like, your name is like really important. I don't do it, but I should, and I know I should, and I know that you should do Naam Simran, because you're, at least in that moment, you're trying to just stay in that moment. And I'm like, just take a moment for you, and it's not really for you, it's to serve the consciousness and really to sit in a moment. And we don't do that. Well, I don't do that, for sure. So looking around, I think a lot of people do probably, but things like that, and journaling, and then knowing why you're an artist, and you don't have to share everything with the public. Just and forgive yourself. And it's not like a lot of the things you do, you're not held to the old version of you, or an old version of a song, or an old version of anything, or other people's perception, because it's just a perception. Just like, I met you today, so I've got a perception. I don't know. I ain't got a clue, like, how deep like your background is. How I don't know. You same, you know, vice versa. So really, no one really knows you, and you've always got the freedom to just do something new, reinvent yourself, and just be like, you know, that stuff I used to do, it probably wasn't good. Let's just stop doing it, and now I'm going to be this kind of person. And it's like, you can do that. Like, you're not held to. I think a lot of happening, like, like, and it's like, you don't have to be an angry banda all your life, just because when you was 20 you was like quite a rough kind of banda. You can just mellow out and just be a chill banda now. And I can't really speak to like anyone else, but that's really what I feel like. Just let go of your own construction of yourself, and I think there's a lot of freedom and health in that in general, because your mental health, that's going to affect your physical health 100%. Yeah.
I feel like we could go on for hours, but I think that's an amazing place for us to take a bit of a pause. Thank you so much, Beant, for this conversation so far. I think this has been eye-opening for myself. I hope the audience as well. We're learning so many things, and I hope this is the first of many conversations on this topic, because I think you have such great insights, and I know you're doing great things out there, and we can't wait to see more.
No, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Beant. So we're going to do a quick little switch over now to bring in our next guest. So our first half of the conversation was amazing with Beant, and now we're excited to move into a similar realm with Jazz Dhami. I had the pleasure of meeting you back in 2019. Then I followed you across Canada at a couple music festivals. But since then, I've always been fascinated by your journey, because for me, your music has spans so many different genres, so many different types, but there's always been a soul to it. And your catalog, like I said, it spans you've got the romantic tracks, you've got dance anthems, soulful ballads. Is there a chapter of your earlier career that really stands out to you that you feel like shaped you the most as an artist?
First of all, hello to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me and allowing me to use your platform to speak about obviously mental health and just be part of this. Thank you so much. I'd say there's been so many songs, right? But I'd say the one song that shaped me completely was "Main Punjabi Boliya." Rest in peace to Jalman Singh Danda Sahab. He's passed away recently as well, the guy who wrote it. And I say that because as I was growing up, I listened to a lot of Bollywood music when I was growing up, and a lot of Punjabi music was played in my house. And as I started releasing music, I always had this vision of being a playback singer, a Bollywood singer, which I did go on to do as well. But I'd say Punjabi Boli gave me it just gave me this different feeling. I remember when he recited the words, "Main Punjabi Boli," I just felt different when I heard it. And I was like, this sounds like something that I want to... Because I felt like when I was going to schools and teaching music as well, a lot of children wasn't speaking Punjabi. And I was like, this is something that I want to speak about. But one of the main reasons was because as I was growing up, my dad had this massive vision of me doing Bollywood music, right? and it's like I was living his dream for a long period. But when I sang Punjabi Boli, it gave me a different feeling to be like, this is who I am. This is what I want to represent in the best possible way I can. And this is going to be my vision. And that's one of my favorite songs I've ever made. And I'd say also there's a song called Badi Der Hogi Veeriya Kathiya Beh Ke Piti Nu. And the reason why I sang that song was because when I was living out in Punjab, actually before I went to Punjab to live there for a year, 2 years, my dad met his brother after 22 years. He went back to India. And I remember that feeling he had of when he met his brother in Mumbai, because they lived in Mumbai. And when the writer of that song, Santokh Singh Desi, recited them words, it took me back to that moment. And that's why I'd say that's another song of mine that I feel so connected to. So them two songs are definitely, I'd say, the main songs that I've sang for me personally.
That's amazing. And you talk about that moment. I know we talked a little bit about how in the mental health world, you can't have the positive without the negative. And even when we talk about songs like when they're about drinking or meeting with people, there are both that positive and negative aspect. And like you said, like tera na beh ke piniya, like that's something that of course could be interpreted in a different way.
Could be cha, right?
Yeah, could be cha, could be whatever it is. And it is, but the act of drinking together and eating together, those type of things, like you said, those are important moments and they become more amplified. Like as you were talking about it, I could fully picture someone, like now I view the song differently, knowing your story, because I can recognize that feeling. I've seen people in my life who haven't seen their siblings in
after so many years, and that's something that's very common. And you talked a little bit about it, how your dad was really pushing you into this Bollywood realm, and you were kind of you were like, no, that's not really me. Were there other collaborators, mentors, or people in your family as well that were really supportive of what you wanted to do or helped you find your voice? Or was that something that you kind of had for yourself where you had to fight against the grain a little bit? I'd say even though my dad wanted me to do more Bollywood music, I understand the vision, because that diversified the style of music that I've been doing, right? So I'm not completely like against what he pushed me into. I love how he shaped me into the artist I am. But he was my main like cheerleader always. He was the main guy, and my brother as well. He was a big part of obviously my journey growing up. But I'd say my dad's definitely the number one person that's pushed me in every single way he potentially could. Yeah. So I always give props to my dad for everything that he's done for me.
That's amazing.
Maharaj, obviously.
And as well, like you've gone through your own healing journey in the past few years as well. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But for those who may not necessarily know as much about what you've been going through in the last little bit, even though you've been very vocal, do you want to tell us a little bit about what the last few years have been like for you?
Yeah, it's it's been a difficult I'll say a difficult 3 or 4 years. So those of you that don't know, I was first diagnosed with cancer in 2022. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then 3 weeks later, my brother had an aneurysm. Later on, 6 months later, he went into having a prognosis of a brain cancer called a midline glio, which most patients don't live past 6 months. But in that period, he also had a son. I'd say 3 months, just 3 or 4 months before he was diagnosed, he had a son. And then it was like I was just battling between my own diagnosis and my brother's diagnosis, and obviously the family going through everything they're going through. So that's the gist of, I'd say, what we've been going through as a family. And in between that, obviously treatments, my own treatments. I took obviously a different, not sure if you guys know, but I took a totally different route. I went down the holistic route, but my brother chose to, he was forced, I'd say, because I think his understanding is right. He was forced into going to more of a conventional route. So I saw both ends of the stick, sides, I'd say. I saw myself healing, but I also saw him deteriorating through that period. So it was a tough period, and sadly he passed away this year, February the 16th.
I'm so sorry for your loss, and it's an unimaginable amount of grief. And for someone like yourself, was there any sort of role that music or even silence played in your healing journey of maybe not even just healing, but processing what was going on during that time?
I'd say, healing is like an ongoing process. Like, you never really get over a loss of someone, especially a sibling.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And it sounds a bit crazy saying that. Like, I feel like even my diagnosis, it gave me an insight into a different world. Being in solitude, meditating, and doing what I was doing in the build-up of before my brother passed away, it helped me. It gave me the tools to really deal with a lot of stuff. See, I went through a period of just wanting to be by myself and just being in meditation. So I listened to a lot of healing music, a lot of frequencies, and I just did a lot of like Joe Dispenza meditations. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him, but he's phenomenal. He's just a phenomenal neuroscientist. So I think I'd say that's mainly what I did over the last 3 years before my brother passed away.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, you went more on that holistic route. And as someone, I deal with chronic pain issues, and I've been kind of back and forth of doctors kind of push me into this very conventional of take these medications, and then it ends up being 5 or 10 different pills I have to take. And I took a step back and I was like, I think this is actually making me feel worse. I started to look into more holistic methods. And I know you talked about frequencies, etc. Tell me a little bit more about what those holistic methods were that you were looking into that you found that really made some differences for you.
First of all, I'd say I had a lot of support, I'd say, from my wife, from my in-laws, from my family. And my wife's here today, actually, Suki, there she's in the back. She really supported me throughout the whole period. And it wasn't just, I'd say, I did a lot of research. Like, at that time, my daughter was 2 years old, and I remember every evening from like 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock every day, I'd just be researching like every type of method. And I was really blessed in so many ways because Maharaj kept giving me the signs. I kept seeing different things. I kept meeting people that are on the same route. And funny enough, not funny enough, but 10 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I remember my wife telling me that there's a guy that cured himself with cancer 10 years ago. It's all holistically. And we went to see him, buy some CBD off him, like what my wife did like 10 years ago. And when I got diagnosed around that period, she was saying that we should go and see them guys and see what they did. So I was so fortunate because when I met him and when I spoke to him, he was actually diagnosed with the same thing as me.
Wow.
And he healed his stage 4 cancer within like 8 months, 9 months, which is phenomenal. So he gave me his whole like routine, what he did. He went to a center in Spain called the Gerson Center, I think it's called, and did things like oxygen therapy, IV vitamin C, high doses vitamin C drips, a lot of supplementation, infrared saunas, grounding, something that I'm sure everybody in this room has heard their parents or grandparents say, बाहर जाके अपने ना निर्णे काल अपने सवेरे जाके अपने पैर धरती ते लाया करो सवेर नू. And जो तेल पई हुंदी है ना, when you wake up in the morning and you go out onto the grass, you see there's a little tail on the grass. Walk on that. I've heard that in so many years. I've been hearing that from my parents, from my grandparents. So I did a lot of grounding. Obviously, I'd say the biggest part for me, the two biggest parts were, one was meditation. That changed my life completely. And I'll speak more about this later on as well, but it changed my whole perception of everything. Like, it just gave me answers and certain things that I wouldn't have got from people. I'd say that. And I did a lot of cold therapy as well. So hot and cold therapy, infrared saunas, into cold showers, ice baths. And that's just some part of things. I did like I had a whole routine. Every day I was in like 2 treatments every single day. I just dedicated myself. And I want to say how I got into that mindset was when I was living in Punjab, when I was 16, I remember I went out there to study music, Indian classical music. And I remember sometimes I'd be in a room for like 5 hours a day just practicing consistently. It would be super hot outside and there'll be no electric for like 3 days. And I took myself back into that zone. Like, how did you do that? Like, how did you? And I just thought about our gurus, the sacrifices our gurus have made. And I thought that gave me a lot of power. It gave me a lot of, I don't know, it just gave me a different feeling that our they're actually nothing if you compare them to our gurus and what our ancestors have done for us. So I took myself into that zone, and that helped me. I'll say more than anything, that meditation and cold shower was like the main 3 things that, because healing doesn't happen with just supplementation. It's understanding the reason why you've got a diagnosis. So I got to the root of what it was, and getting to the root of that helped me heal.
That's so incredible. And I think you touched on this a little bit of, there's so many things that like either our parents or grandparents, like my nanny always would be like, tu kare shoe ponni hai, tu chappal kyun pai hai, la de nu and pair kharab ho jange. I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, my feet are cold. Like, I need to wear slippers. But then I think about it, even as you were talking about it, I don't think I've ever really thought about this before, but even at the Gurdwara, like, why do we take our shoes off? And like, I see this a lot we talked a little bit about this with Beant as well. In Sikh culture, there are a lot of things that are internally mental well-being regulating. And we talked about doing nitnam and everything in the morning, like having your part, like even part itself, that's a meditation.
Of course, Simran, Simran,
Yeah, and I guess
I do that
leading into that, you had, like you said, you learned so much from your own healing journey. And to me, as someone who loves your music, before I loved it to dance to, like I said, there was so many different genres that you were in, and it was wonderful. But this new avenue that you're in, I find it so incredible, especially from the mental health perspective, because it really sounds like your new project took all of that healing that you went into and is now sharing that with the world. So can you tell us a little bit about the project?
Yeah, it's everything. The more I delved into like healing, the more I delved into meditation, the more I delved into music, everything related back to Sikhi. It just related back to it. Like we're talking about solfeggio frequencies now in this day and age, but all these frequencies and all this stuff was done in the meditators time. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he spoke about this then, right? And when we think about just when I was learning Indian classical music, this is where it stemmed from, and I didn't realize until now like how important it was. So when I was learning Indian classical music, do you guys know what a bear is? Bear. So basically every part of the day is a bear, right? So in Bani they say it. For example, Mahalla Panjma Asa. They had to mention the rag's name and what time you should be singing it. So if you think about that was obviously mentioned in Barney years ago. So what I did is I thought about how every rag has a frequency, but we don't even realize what it is. So what I tried to do was with the Wanakari stuff that I've been putting out is I tried to link certain phrases or certain verses from Barney to frequencies, because it's all about emotional. Well, every frequency is about emotional healing or emotional regulation, or it's stuff like distressing from certain. Well, I'd say. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੁੱਖ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਸੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, right? So I linked, like, for example, 207.1, I think it was, that's a link to emotional healing. So I linked that to a rag, which is a rag which is called Bhairav. And that was done obviously years ago. We mentioned it in Barney as well. And certain notes within that rag, they evoke a feeling or an energy. So every rag, I linked it to a frequency, and that was done years ago. Like, that was done in times Guru Devji's times, and he knew that. Like, why did he have Bhai Mardana with him for his udasis? He knew that the most powerful way of connecting somebody is through music, like through a rabab, through, like, why do we have instruments like a sarangi in Sikhi? We have it because it's the mean, it's the note that's in between, that's played, that you don't hear it on a piano, you don't hear it on a harmonium, but you hear it within them instruments, them string instruments. So that was done years ago. So I'm just basically putting my take on it. But that was, like, we're speaking about it now in 2025, but it was done how many years ago?
Yeah, and I think that's so amazing. And it is one of the conversations I've been having with a lot of people. And my own mental health journey is, the more I started learning about mental health, I also suddenly saw myself just connecting more to Sikhi. And it was like growing up, I grew up with a lot of Gore, and I'm from the Toronto area. And there just weren't a lot of Punjabi kids around, or even just brown kids in general, for me to connect to or talk to. And so we talked about this a little before, of like feeling not Indian enough for the Indian people, too white, like not white enough for the white people. And I feel like I rejected Sikhi in those moments and being like, oh, that's not me, because I just didn't feel connected. And I found myself in my mental health journey, the more I connected with myself, the more I brought myself back to Sikhi for those reasons. And it feels like the answers have always been there for us. We just, as a collective, haven't really delved into it. And so Wanakari feels like both this personal transformation, but also a creative rebirth of course, you still have other songs coming out, and you've had phenomenal ones. The one with Simmer was amazing.
Thank you.
But how do you see Wanakari now fitting into your musical world?
See, I went through a really difficult period, like, whilst I was trying to find myself in this journey. I kept thinking, like, I went through a phase of just, like, rejecting even commercial music. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore, because I didn't feel connected to it. But then the more I sat in solitude, the more I meditated, the more I started really realizing that everything is intention, right? Every single thing we do is about intention. So it's about, what's your intention behind doing something. Like, my intention behind doing, obviously, Wanakari stuff, I want people to connect not with me, with the music internally, because it's all about connecting to yourself, and then you connect to Maharaj, right? So that's one of the main reasons why I set it up. But also, whilst I was meditating, it just came to me one day. Like, I kept thinking, how am I going to do both? How am I going to do meditation music and commercial? How is it even possible? And nobody's doing it. But then I just thought, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or is doing. It's true to me. Like, I need to speak my truth. And if it's through Barney, if it's through being connected to frequency, doing stuff like the Wanakari stuff, so be it, I'm going to do it. So, and even, I mean, everybody's like, for me, I'd say for commercial music, I love doing it. I love the process. I mean, the reason why I've continued doing commercial music is because I love the process of going into a room with a blank canvas and sketching something, and then filling them in with colors, and then seeing that flourish and people connecting to that. So my intention is pure in whatever I do. It's just about, and I like having fun. Like, I like living in an imaginary world sometimes. So it's fine. And that's what creatives are, right? We go into these different zones and different places, and then from that we connect to people. So I think it's all about intention, and that's why I've separated the one Akari. One Akari is actually my daughter's name, and in Bani it means light, manifestation. Sorry, I should say. So so that's why I've connected one Akari. I've made one Akari separate, and obviously my other stuff separate as well.
Yeah, and I think that also, again, for yourself, you're an established artist, and going through this transformation later in your career, I think is also very inspiring to young creatives as well. We talked a little bit about how in our world now, almost everyone is multifaceted. It's very hard to put yourself in a box and be like, I'm just this one thing. And that also can have an effect on your mental health as well. And I think, as we talked about in your early journeys, even though maybe you weren't thinking about the mental health aspects and the impact of your music in this exact same way, you were still thinking about those stories and how they connect to people.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that is always fascinating to me for someone from the mental health world, I was always dancing in music videos on the side, doing music stuff on the side, but I always kept it very separate. And I thought, oh yeah, the music world's not related to the mental health world. But then as I started connecting with more artists, I learned how artists are some of our most vulnerable populations.
Yeah.
And it comes with those really, really big highs and also those really big lows.
Yeah.
And so in your journey, how did you also navigate those before you had all these tools? And like now you've got all these tools and you're really thinking about it and you're helping put that out there. But for young creatives who are maybe coming into this space and trying to navigate that, what advice would you have for them?
Advice to my I'd say it's all about your truth, like what's true to you. Like I always say, the truth, like really, it ripples, right? If you speak your truth, some people may be offended, but it's your truth, and I think that's part of healing as well. It's a big part of healing. If you don't speak your truth and you don't do what you love doing, you're going to be going through your life just people pleasing, and that was probably me in some sense as well. But I'd say it's just be true to yourself. I know it's such a generic thing to say, but it's exactly what it is. If you be true to yourself, you'll get what you need for yourself. But in terms of the struggles, there's been loads of struggles. And I mean, living in Mumbai, it's one of the most, and working in Bollywood, it's such a beautiful but toxic and crazy place to be in. Like me and my wife moved there in 2014, and we lived there for 3 years. And I mean, we had great success there. We had some great songs that came out of Bollywood as well. But the one thing that stuck with us was our intention and our, I'd say, just being true to ourselves, because it's difficult when you're in industry and you're around people that are trying to manipulate you to be a certain way because they expect you to be like that. But still stick to your ground and say, this is who I am. I'm not morally, it doesn't align with me, is the most difficult thing. I think whatever aligns with you morally is what's important. I think that should be your driving force for any artist, any creative, any person, I'd say. Just your morals. If you've got a moral towards something, stick to it. And if it's true to you, that's you. Yeah. That's what I'd say.
Amazing. And you talk about your wife often, who also had an amazing career, has an amazing career of her own. Yeah. And going through that process together, do you think that was a helpful element too? Because one of the things I talk to a lot of creatives about is how isolating the creative process can be. And again, it sounds like she's been there for a longer part of your journey. And do you think that kind of helped you in a way? And if she wasn't there, do you think it would have been different?
Yeah, she's kept me in line, I'd say. She's kept me in line all these years. And I think even the journey that I've been on, or we've been on, in terms of our music success together, and also not only that, it's our journey over the last 3-4 years. She's played a big part in that. And me she's been woke for such a long time. I've just been trying to catch up with her. but yeah, she's definitely played a massive part in just realigning me. I think you need that. You need someone in your corner that understands you, and understands your mindset, your morals, that aligns with your morals. You need someone like that with you, and I've been blessed to have that. I truly have been really blessed.
Yeah, because I think it's very easy to get lost. And I know Beant was talking about this as well, as you have so many people giving you like, even if it is positive affirmations of being like, yes, you're doing great. And I know even for a lot of artists, we talk about when you build your team, how important it is to have people who are going to do right by you. And that's something that I don't think a lot of artists take into consideration. And like I said, there's going to be a lot of young artists watching this. How do you take that into consideration, or what are some of the things to look out for? Maybe I know a lot of people have talked about sometimes you just end up with yes men.
Yeah, I was just about to say that a lot of yes men on sets, on when you make songs, when you do events, but there's no particular way. It's just tuning into yourself, right? And and going with the intuition. I think we're in a time where people, they listen to other people rather than listen to themselves. And I think, and I'll keep going back to it, but the only way you can even tune into your intuition or know yourself is going in. Because however you feel about somebody or something or a situation is the right way. I go with my intuition now. When I go with energy, that's what I go with. So I'd say just try and spend some time by yourself. Like, and I watched this podcast over the last 2 years ago, and this guy called Andrew Huberman.
Oh, yes, love that one.
He said one really interesting thing, and it stuck with me for such a long time. He said, just think about if you want to be a creator or you want to be a consumer. And it just stuck with me, and just thought in the morning, like, one of the most important things for me is I want to be a creator. So if I jump on my phone in the morning and I'm just consuming everything else that's online, I'm going to be a consumer. And the only way to create is to be away from every distraction you can think of. And I say that to every single creative. Don't pick up your phone in the morning. Like, like, just, it's important. These things are so important, and that's what I put into practice. That's how I've changed my whole life. And I was saying to somebody earlier on that he was saying to me, and I'm not going off on one, but he was saying to me that there's so much, right? But and I said that it's because the chaos that we're feeling inside is being reflected outside. Until you don't go inside and realize who you are, and that's all of us individually, you will never change, because the chaos is a reflection of what's going on inside. That's simply what it is.
Yeah, and I think even that chaos that you talk about, sometimes that chaos isn't even our own chaos.
Yeah, it's somebody else's.
It's somebody else's. And I think especially one of the conversations Sharnjeet and I here at Taraki have had quite often is that intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
And I know, like you said, that your wife, she was kind of woken into all of these things. And I think for a lot of women, we've had almost like a luxury of being able to talk about these topics a little bit more in the past few years. But men, and especially Punjabi men, brown men in general, it still is very hard to be vulnerable and to put yourself out there. And is that something that came easy to you, or did you have to kind of build yourself up to the point of being vulnerable, especially right now, being so vulnerable today even, and putting yourself out there?
Yeah, it was. See, I think artists are just generally quite emotional people. We're just like, we are tuned in a different way. And we're all artists, by the way. But I'd say it's easy. It's become easier for me, I'd say, over the last 3-4 years. And I think what's really helped me is also journaling. I think sometimes we're lost, aren't we? Don't want to speak to anybody about stuff, but journaling helps. Like, if I put my thoughts down in the diary and just it sits there or it stays there, right? That's a way of doing it as well. But I'd say it is a difficult one, because I think everyone's on their own journey, right? And you're right, traumas, like recently scientists have discovered that it goes back like 6 generations. That's what scientists saying that. Like, we think, kede janam to aaye hoye ya, kede karm dekh ke, kede asi ruha dekh ke aaye ya, right? So I think, I hope that answers your question.
No, I think that does. And like you said, for us, there's so many things, the 6 generations, like that, from the mental health side of things, that's something that really stuck out to me, because when I was on my own mental health journey, I was discovering, I'm struggling with depression, I'm struggling with anxiety, but I couldn't figure out why. Like, even I remember I was about 16, I was in class, I went to my first psychology class, and they're writing down the symptoms of depression on the board, and I'm like writing it down. I'm like, this just seems like life. This is just my day to day. And I went to my mom and I was like, Mom, I think I'm depressed. And I remember she was like, you've got good grades, you've got
Yeah.
family, you've got friends. Like, what do you have to be depressed about? And it wasn't a like chup kar ja moment. It was a genuine question. And when she asked me, I was like, I actually don't know. Like, everything seems to be going well for me, but I just feel this inside of me. And then as I got into my 20s, I started to realize, oh, a lot of the depression that I was carrying wasn't mine. It was my father's, my mother's, all these things that they maybe necessarily didn't deal with, and it was now flowing into myself.
It's called DNA expression. yeah. So it's called, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think in that vein as well, for the mental health conversations in our community are still evolving quite a bit. And you said this, and I think I agree with the sentiment of everyone's an artist.
Yeah.
And maybe explain a little bit more to other people why you see it that way. How do you see that everyone is an artist?
We're all creators, right?
Yeah.
And like I was saying just not long ago, we can only create in silence. We can't create in when we're consuming. So it's just about really tuning in. And I know it sounds like it's easier said than done, because sitting on your own for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, sometimes it gets difficult because you want to look at your phone.
Yeah.
You want to see, you got so many thoughts going out through your head. You're thinking, I got to do this, I got to do that, got to put this on, do that, do that. But the only way to do that is to silence your mind. I keep saying it because I've seen the change in people around me. Like the instant, obviously it takes time, takes practice, but I'd say just that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah. And so for more traditional artists, in the sense of artists who are putting themselves out there, not just doing it for themselves at home, what do you see the role of an artist being in bridging the gap between community, mental health, all these different topics? Do you think the artist plays a role, or is that too much pressure to put on an artist?
I think we do play a role. I think everyone's individual. Like, I think everyone's got their own choice, right, to do and portray themselves how they want to portray themselves. But I feel like you can't putting that pressure on artists is crazy, because it's like we're just trying to express ourselves. So music is an expression, right? So, but I understand we're influential as well in so many ways. So I think putting that in our music is important, and it goes back to intention. How do you want to portray yourself, and how do you want people to react to what you're doing? Like I heard Benji over here speaking about like gangster music and all that stuff, and I get it. It's a reflection of society in Punjab. It's actually about people, how they are in Punjab, and it's become a thing. And I'm not saying it's okay. Am I okay with it? I mean, as a commercial aspect of it, or aspect of listening to it, I don't mind it. But I see the influence on people. So for me personally, I wouldn't do it. Relating it to something that's more conscious, I'd rather do that. But I hear when you're saying, is it a responsibility? In some way or another, it is. We do have a small responsibility towards that. But there's so many positives, obviously, from artists as well, what they're putting out. Like, for example, not that I'm sticking up for all artists, but there's so many things that we've done influentially. Like, for example, the floods in Punjab, even the farmers' protest. Like, we've played such a massive part in pushing the narrative of such, right? So I think you can't put every artist in a box.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own freedom of doing what they're doing. Just, I think for me personally, I can only speak for myself that I won't be doing that. That's not me.
Yeah. And I think, speaking about the farmers' protests as well, one of the other things we talked about was how hip hop culture comes from that social justice. A lot of, like you said, it was those personal experiences. Like, Biggie wasn't talking about drugs and other things because he thought it was cool. It's because that was his lived experience, and he was putting that out there. And during the farmers' protests, I know, especially in the UK, there were a lot of artists, including yourself, who put music out there, and not just Punjabi artists. There was a lot of, like, we had Rihanna speaking up for this, and I don't think that would have been possible if our artists hadn't put their voices out there and put themselves on the line. And it was, like you said, for a lot of artists, like including yourself, Bollywood, India is somewhere, that's where you get a lot of your audience from. Was that ever a second thought or it was immediate that you're like, no, I feel something, I have to kind of do something about this?
it's where I come from, right? It's where ancestors come from, Punjab. If we're not speaking about the place where we come from, like, what's the point? Like, I always say, like, if you can't rep the people that have put clothes on your back, like, what's the point? What's the point you being here? Like, we're here to represent society and, well, help society. And being a Sikh, I think that's morally, it's what we should be doing. Like, not only for our own people, for everybody. We should be turning up for people. And for me, I thought it did cross my mind that it'll affect my shows, but I thought, yeah, but it's me. It's who I am. That's where my Dadaji did, my Babaji did, like, Kheti Badi. Like, even though I've got a connection. I've lived in Punjab. I've seen the impact of Kheti Badi in Punjab because I've been around people, my friends. So if I don't speak up for that, then what's the point of my existence? I think, and it goes back to Sach. What's your Sach? Like, are you going to speak that? Or are you going to let just people just walk all over what's true to you?
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And it really goes into that, like you said, this artist journey. There's moments where you have to do it for yourself. There's moments where you have to, stand up for your people. But as long as that's your truth, I guess.
And that's important. I remember when I did Punjabi Bolli, before that I had a song called High Heels, which was a massive song for me. And like, I remember when I dropped Punjabi Bolli, my Punjabi Bolli, a lot of artists, a lot of labels, a lot of like people in the industry was like, why would you drop a song like Punjabi Bolli after High Heels? Like, why would you do that? And my answer was always like, I had so many people connect to me with High Heels. And there was a Sach in Punjabi Bolli that I wanted to get out there. And it was the second song that came out. And I segregated a whole market, but I didn't care because it's how I felt inside. That's how I was feeling that this is important to me. And even though I haven't done many Sabyacharak or Sabyacharak or Dharmic, loads of geets, but whatever is true to me, I'm going to put that out there. That's alongside the commercial songs that I love doing.
Yeah, and I think that's so important as well. Like you said, especially for your audience with High Heels, you had this younger audience as well that was like, wow, like this is fun, and it's a captive audience that you can give a message to. And I've seen in the artist world, a lot of people will put out something very commercial and then do this, and everyone else is going to tell you no. The business, the label, everyone's going to say no. And it's really hard to stand up for yourself in these businesses. And for, like I said, new creatives that are coming into it, how do you keep holding on to your truth? Because I think it's very easy to let that go when money's on the line or your job is on the line. It could be a life or death decision sometimes, it feels like.
Yeah, well, it is a challenge, because I know everyone's financial situations are different and everyone's thought process is different, but I think you just gotta, I just can't differ from what I said earlier on. It's just, it's intuition, it's how you feel. If it doesn't sit right with you, why do it? Like, you're gonna feel upset. You're gonna, if you've put something out and after that doesn't align with you, you're just gonna regret it, and you're gonna be living in that regret. I should have done that then. I should have done this. I should have done that. But if you go with your gut feeling, at some point it has to connect to people. It has to. It's just the universe will give you exactly what you need, but it's if you believe in it. I'll give you an example, and even these are commercial songs, and how we see things. Like, I remember I did a song in 2009 called "Take You Wali Nahi Chadti." It's totally, I know, it's about sharab, but it isn't. Around that period, my dad kept saying to me that, "Tu hor bhangade gaane kar, bhangade wale gaane kar." I was like, "Dad, but he's uddara gana kar." And I just kept thinking, like, Dad, I don't want to do that. Like, I've done that now. I want to do something else. And then obviously High Heels came. And then Punjabi Bolli, Zulfa, all them songs came. It's because I kept it open. I didn't think that I needed to do something because it is following the trend. I just thought sometimes ਸਾਡੇ ਆਪ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਡੇ vision ਹੈ ਆਪਣਾ ਦੇਖਣ ਦਾ ਤਰੀਕਾ, it's so small, but when we give it to Maharaj, to the universe, to the divine, it will give you exactly what you need at the right timing. Like, nothing is the wrong timing. I think everything that we do in our lives is divine timing. It's just we've got to just surrender and give it.
Yeah, I love that. And I know, as you were talking about this in the beginning as well, like even in your grief journey, sometimes it's very hard to say everything happens for a reason. But it really does. And if we believe in Maharaj, if we believe that all of these things are true, we have to have that surrender as well.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's so difficult. Like when I was going through my whole journey and you know, just like, even though I didn't get many people saying to me, you should be doing chemo and radiotherapy, there was that dada. I was scared. I can be honest and say I was afraid of just not following what everybody is doing. Like, but then I just kept following my gut. I kept following the signs from Maharaj, and just thought, I've got to do this the way. And you know what? You get signals. The universe will give you signs, the right signs. It'll give you the right conversation at the right time. You'll meet the right person. You'll have the right feeling when you need it. It's just, you have to just consistently absorb and just let go, which is so hard. It's so hard. I'm still learning. We're all learning, right? But when you finally start understanding the concept, it just works out for you.
Yeah, and I think our concept of mental health and mental well-being is always evolving. And of course, our concept of self is always evolving. I think one of the things from the mental health world that I really picked up and talked to a lot of artists that I work with as well is you're not going to be the same person at all times. And nor are you supposed to. You're supposed to have bad days. You're supposed to have good days, because you can't appreciate life without both of those.
Yeah.
And now after this journey, what does mental well-being really mean to you now?
It's just the way of life. That's exactly what it is. I think turning up every single day, you have good days, you have bad days, you feel like crap. But I think it's it's coming back from that. It's your response to it. Like how if you're affected, like I remember when I first started doing my meditation, all my other stuff, like journaling and whatnot, there was a period when I'll have down days, and there'll be like 3 days, 4 days of down days, when I'll just be sitting in, thinking, how am I going to get through this? But then that turned into 3 days, then 2 days, 1 day, 24 hours, 23 hours, 16 hours. And now it's sometimes a couple of minutes, because I can zone out of it. And that's all it is. It's coming back to like the present. That's the most difficult thing. Like we live in such an unconscious way. Like we're consistently just thinking and just moving and maneuvering in a different zone. But when we're present, that enables you to really work on the now. Yeah. That's what's important. Like what's happening right now. And you can only do that with things like even Simran. Like if you can't, not saying even Simran is one of the most important things, I think, for me. Like even Japana, Naam Japana, like just saying Vaheguru or saying whatever just being in that present moment. That's what helps, I'd say.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, being present, I think a lot of us think being present is something that we can just do automatically. Yeah. But it's a practice. And I think...
Yeah, it's turning up every single day. You need to turn up every single day and having that routine and sticking to it. Like people say, like I hear my friends say as well that my self-care is going to the gym. Yeah. But what's your mental self-care? Like, how are you turning up how are you, when you're saying you're going to get up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and are you waking up? But no, that's a form of disrespecting your own body and your thoughts and your mindset, because self-care isn't just what you eat. It's how you talk to yourself, your own conversations, how you speak to yourself. Because like the Japanese say, there's 3 voices, or the 3 personalities that we have. We have a personality that how people perceive us. We have the personality and the voice that our family and friends know us. But there's a voice that's within you that nobody hears. Only you hear that voice. Like, how are you changing that?
Yeah.
And that's like, again, part of self-care.
Yeah. And that's it's work. It takes practice, because it is, even when you talk about self-care in the mental health world, we talk about it that there's 7 pillars of self-care.
Yeah.
And it breaks down into all of those things that you talked about. You have to take care of your hygiene. One of the pillars. If I remember, even when a lot of people start to struggle, like you said, you have 2-3 days when you just can't bring yourself to do anything. That includes being able to shower, brush your teeth. There's a lot of people who that goes for them, and you don't realize how important that is to your self-care. And as we're kind of wrapping up, we're going to end off with a meditation, which is going to be very exciting, that Jazz is going to lead us through. But before we get into that, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the people who look up to you? I think as well, in the artist world, oftentimes we don't get to have these conversations. You get to do a lot of interviews. People want to know about all the fun, exciting things you're doing. But for myself, like I said, artists, I think, are voices that can help change the conversation about what's going on in our world. And so having this platform, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I just like to say, just turn up for yourself. I think that's the most important thing for me. That's the message I'm trying to. And the reason why I'm here today is because obviously you guys have invited me, but also using the space and the platform to just speak about just internal voices, and also just turning up for ourselves. I think it's so important. We give so much importance to the way we look, and I think I do as well. But we've got to just really give ourselves time. And I think we always say, "Sada ko time hai nahi, ye karnu, wo karnu," but we do have time.
Yeah,
we have time to have them social media messages, sending out the social media messages, being 5 hours on our phone. Like, these things are like just things that we just think it's normal, but we can't take out like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. That's all I want to say. Just take out 10 minutes kar liya karo diyadi apne liye bas. Just shukrana karo apna, and just try and just give yourself a bit of time. If it's not 10 minutes, give them 5, even 3 minutes. Like it goes a long way. And just work on yourself. That's what I like to say.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation today. And like I said, I know we've talked about a lot. Some things are heavy, and often with mental health conversations, there's a lot that can come up for us as individuals. And because of that, Jazz is so wonderfully going to take us through a meditation to help bring ourselves back to center.
So the frequency I'm going to do today is 963. They call it the God frequency, which is basically it's the term that's used in today's day and age. It's let me just see if this works 1 minute. It's a solfeggio frequency, and it helps you tune into your intuition and your pineal gland as well. Pineal gland is basically here. Does anybody know what your third eye is? Yeah, exactly. So what I want you guys to do is just sit and just put your hands on your lap like this. And just close your eyes. Inhale through your nose and exhale out your mouth. You're going to have loads of thoughts coming out in and out your mind. What you have to do after this. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. I want you guys to place your attention on your third eye and continue inhaling and exhaling. Mind wanders, concentrate on your third eye and continue doing your inhaling and exhaling. start moving your fingers, your feet, your body, and when you're ready, open your eyes. How do you guys feel? Feel more relaxed? See, that's 3 minutes. That's all it is. It's 3 minutes. I hope you can take something away from this. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.